Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Faiza Malik. This is our second core education webinar. We welcome you tonight. Thank you for making the time, and we hope you get great value from this interactive session. In the room with me, I've got Dr. Jan Niemand and Hazel Hatting, and they are going to be talking a bit about preparing your child for tomorrow's careers because, as you know, we're in the age of AI. Technology is accelerating at an incredible pace. And not only can we struggle to figure out what's happening now, but the idea of figuring out the future is really daunting. So I'm hoping that Dr. Niemand and Hazel can weigh in this evening and kind of guide us on that. And maybe just help us to think about how parents should think about their children's careers and how will their careers be different than ours right now. Welcome, Hazel. Welcome, Dr. Niemand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faiza. I appreciate it. So when we start talking about this issue of careers of the future and where is all this going, I find it always very helpful to just take a little bit of two steps back and get a sense of how have we got to where we are currently. So we take a look at a little bit of the future through a lens of the past that has occurred up to now. So we're going to chat about a few things that has happened in recent history, and what we need to have in our minds when we talk about these things is that the world of work, we assume that the world of work has been stable for quite a while, and jobs have always just been there, and it's they are something that governments and businesses and organizations and corporations create, and you skill yourself in a certain direction and with certain skills or knowledge, and then you make a value proposition as an employee to an organization, or if you're really risky, you start your own thing. And we also have in our heads that we've got stuff like labor laws and an employment equity act, and these things, they're all part of our world. But what we do need to understand is this is a blip, a very recent development in the world of work. In fact, it is probably been like this for the past 70, 80 years. It might even be shorter in some people's estimation. But let's just frame this whole thing that our current understanding of what a job and work entails is a very recent development, and it is busy changing as we speak. So I'm going to share just a few visuals for us to understand what is happening and how we can start thinking about the future in a more informed way regarding our children's careers and jobs. So let's just do that. And there we go. So, what we need to understand is that there have been four big changes. Your more academic perspectives talk about industrial revolutions, but what we can, for our discussion this evening, just think about them as radical changes in how people worked and how they worked to gain an income of some sort. So, the first big change in how we relate to jobs and work happened in Europe in round about 1784. And this was when we figured out that we could harness steam power with pipes and gears and levers, and we could build things like the steam engine and the locomotive. We could build machines that ran on coal and steam and eventually other types um, of fuel, and we could replace large factories of assembly lines of people with a few machines. And that was what we called the industry revolution. So how we the jobs that were available at that time were radically changed, and people had to find other skills to and other places in the economy to generate value. So that was our first industrial revolution. Then something happened which took this first industrial revolution to the next level, and that is when we started to figure out how to harness electricity. Now you didn't have to light a physical fire in a steam locomotive. Now you could work with batteries and chargers and electrical lines, and all of a sudden, what we could do with machines really doubled, if not tripled. Um, and it created an industry where new jobs arose and old ones also fell away. So you can see the pattern here. The third big industrial revolution roundabout happened in roundabout 1969. There were some earlier signs, but was when we first figured out that computers and electronics can be in people's houses, not just for big corporations. And we started moving towards automation, where machines could take on very complex tasks, and and actually new jobs also arose in this industry. And we are going through a massive change currently, and this is called the fourth industrial revolution. So, how is this different? We still have all the things from the previous three industrial revolutions still present in our lives, but with an added detail. We have a cyber world which none of us can actually see and touch. We can only interact with it through screens and Wi Fi and the Internet of Things and systems and networks. But now, all of a sudden, Pfizer, if you think about it, just round about 200 years, 250 years ago, we were running steam engines. And now we can have an entire factory producing goods running 24/7 around the clock, and there isn't a human in sight. This is what we are currently experiencing. So, what we need to understand is with every industrial revolution, jobs were destroyed or made obsolete, and new jobs came to the fore, and people had to reskill and find other ways to make an income. To give you a sense of how strange an industrial revolution can seem to us, pre-industry, we had jobs that were very common, like a Fletcher maker. Now, I don't know whether you know what a Fletcher maker is, but a Fletcher
No.
is a Fletcher is those they're those feathers that you put at the end of an arrow, of a bow and arrow set, and you had professional people that had to make these things because it's very technical to get it right. We had the town crier, the person that would walk in town and announce big announcements. And this one is fantastic. I wouldn't be able to do this, but a knocker up is someone that naturally woke up early in the morning, and then people paid them to come and knock on their windows and doors to wake them up. So the moment we went
Phenomenal.
into industry one,
Mm.
these people disappeared. These jobs disappeared. Then jobs like millers started coming to the fore, where people would buy these big windmills, or build them, and mechanized handloom weavers, steam train in drivers or conductors. But these fell away with the second industrial revolution, and they were replaced by telegraph operators, switchboard operators. I don't know whether you can remember, or some of our listeners probably can remember the switchboards that operators that helped us. You would phone in and say, "Hi, can I please talk to this and this and this number?" And they would physically switch to that number. It's gone. It was a fully fledged job and people could be brilliant at it. It's gone. Industry three, typists, video store workers, elevator operators, all these jobs that were legitimate and people could earn a living off them fell away in the third industry, and especially leading up to the fourth. Now, our big question is, which jobs are going to fall away or change radically? And the big one, which jobs are going to be created? Now, the sad part is, Faiza, unfortunately, although I am a professional futurist, I can't read tea leaves and I can't look into crystal balls. The big thing is, we can make estimated and educated guesses, but think about this. Did you 10 years ago anticipate that the profession of a social media strategist would arise? And
Yeah,
this is,
no,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, sorry, go for it.
No. I wouldn't have anticipated the role. I mean, I was an early adopter and enjoyed social media, but I didn't think that it was quite a fully fledged role 10 years ago. And I mean, I grew up with video store operators and typists. And I grew up in a time where there was no cell phones, and I don't think I'm that old.
And it's very interesting. My mom tells me she can remember the first time that they were on the farm that they received Eskom power.
Oh,
Before that, she did part of her high school career by candlelight. I mean, can you? It's fascinating, and she's really not that old. So, what is Industry 4 that we are busy entering all about? You will have buzzwords like cyber security, because now people can get hold of your data, even your money, in ways that previously they had to physically rob a bank. We've got augmented or even virtual reality, and I experienced this at a fair, or just at a conference last week, where um, the tourism Cape Town had a stall, and they had a VR headset there that took you to Table Mountain or this part of. So you, as someone that is interested in tourism, could go there in a virtual sense. Why? So that you would physically go there and contribute to the tourism. But it was a fantastic way of looking at things. Big data, it's all about massive data, and I don't think we fully understand how big data is. um, Apparently you can ask Facebook, for instance, to print out all the data they have of you. If well, I say Facebook, it might be it's one of the big techs, and if they were to deliver it to your door, it would probably be a book yay thick and increasing, and that's just on one person's interaction. We've got autonomous robots. We've got additive manufacturing. Now, this is a fantastic development where we can print stuff where we previously had to build them. Think printing, these 3D printers where people print little plastic stuff and toys and that type of stuff. That's just the beginning. You can print houses, you can print buildings, you can possibly, in the near future, a little bit speculative, but probably print stuff like more complex materials or even food. We've got simulations, system integrations, cloud computing, the Internet of Things. It's not just the internet, it everything is connected to the internet. So this is just, in a nutshell, the world that people are experiencing. And it feels to people like, yes, everything is just moving so fast. And that's the point. They don't call it an industrial slow change, they call it a revolution, because it happens so quickly that before people know it, they might be in a job where the company all of a sudden says, listen, um, we're going through a restructuring. We are making these positions redundant. It can genuinely happen. And it's not just scary. It's not just that. There are wonderful opportunities, different types of possibilities for humanity as a whole and for individuals. But the big thing that we need to take away from this conversation is how people work and add value to society and how they are going to get paid will dramatically alter year by year as we go through this industrial revolution. We actually are experiencing many academics that are saying that, well, the fourth industrial revolution is massive, but there's a looming fifth one on its way already. And it's a bit more theoretical, but people are imagining a world where we've gone through this fourth industrial revolution, how society looks now. I mean, do things like teachers even exist? Or do people interact with AI bots and models and they go through an education? What type of education does that look like? So these are all questions that we're asking now. But the point is, we have to understand that the fourth industrial revolution will cause our kids to approach work and adding value to society in order to receive some form of compensation is going to look a lot different than the stock standard start at a firm, continue, and retire from the firm. We suspect that people that enter into jobs like that will be in the far minority.
Thank you. And I think the historical context really contextualizes things for me. And like you said, previous generations, it was entering a firm, staying there for 50 years and then leaving. And we've seen that shift already. Currently we do stay in the same industry, we stay doing the same thing, but we move from firm to firm every few years. And like you're painting a picture for future, year on year, things might change. So our kids might not go firm to firm, but they might go into different industries or into different branches and do different things throughout their single career. So could you maybe talk to me about what parents could do to help prepare their children for their careers? Because I don't think it's going to be as simple, and perhaps transferable skills and critical thinking play a part here. So if I'm good at communication, is this the kind of path I could take where it's not quite clear, but it leverages my skills? Or how do we navigate that? Hazel, maybe?
Mm.
No, I think it's so important for parents to also start educating themselves. I think there was a Gallup survey conducted, and it showed that 90% of teenagers or Gen Z students, they follow the advice of their parents, and because they trust their parents' advice in how to navigate this world. So if we as parents are not educating ourselves, how do we even start by helping our children? So the first, and I think the big step might be to go out and do some research and see what's out there. And you're in the world of work. I think that makes it a bit more easier to gain a different perspective and then to share these ideas with your child. So I think teens are definitely twice as likely to be interested in a career path as well, if their parents have discussed it with them. So that's probably also a really good place to start. So in South Africa, I think we have different ways of looking at education currently. We can go to universities, which are our, structured sense of education, the TVET colleges, maybe even apprenticeships, and online courses. So these are great ways to expose your child that, yes, there are structured ways to look at your education. You can take them to career expos, open days, show them what is happening and, why university may be beneficial to their career. But I think the interesting dynamic that's currently shifting is that universities will not be playing such a pivotal role anymore in a child's career. We are so used to like, oh, I'm going to send my child to university, and after university, they're going to enter this job, and that's going to be the best thing for them. And that's simply not going to happen anymore. We already see a shift in America where big companies, big corporations are saying, no, we're no longer looking at university degrees. We want to look at experience. We want to look at, and this is the key word here, we want to look at skills. And however, it's great to look at universities. I think, especially if you want to, have your child experience a shift in their perspective, maybe gain a deeper sense of critical thinking, university can be an excellent way to enhance those types of skills. But again, the key would be going on, focusing on skills. And again, it may not be like, okay, so we're going to go and study engineering. I'm going to be a chemical engineer at a SASL, or I'm going to be a mechanical engineer or civil engineer, for example. That may not be the case. We already see in South Africa, your big banks like FNB, Nedbank, they look at engineers and say, you know what, you have critical skills you've developed at university,
Yes.
not for engineering. Yes, you can do all the stuff engineers are supposed to do, but we'd like to utilize those skills to come in and become a person going into cybersecurity, coding, software development. We can even see, I actually have been, when I've been in Cape Town, I've come into contact with a data solution company that creates opportunities for other businesses by going into their data sets, or maybe even product development. They employ engineers. So the idea of going into university saying, I'm going to be an accountant, or I'm going to be an engineer, or I'm going to be a doctor, may not be what is going to happen. You may, go into that position, or you may go into that field, but not necessarily enter the job market as an engineer or an accountant. You are going to utilize the skills you've learned and maybe apply them in a different field. And I think for parents, that is sometimes such a like, but this is not why this is not what you were supposed to be doing. You were supposed to study and become a doctor. I mean, you studied medicine. Why are you now going into this and that? But the idea is that it's changing, and skills sets can be learned, can be developed, and it can be transferable to different jobs and different positions. And that's again, the key thing here is on skills and not jobs. So if we then focus or move away from formal and structured education like universities, how do we then equip our children to get those skills, right? To become more employable in the future? I think there's about, if I'm not mistaken, there's a gap, 77,000 or yes, 77,000 jobs currently in South Africa in the tech industry that are hugely underskilled. So how do we then equip our children to say, okay, we're going to take them from someone that has a basic education to skilling them for the right types of jobs out there? And again, as Jan mentioned, it may not be so easy to like, palm reading and saying, no, this is what you should do. These are the 5 steps you should follow. And then, this is how how you can upskill yourself in terms of filling those gaps, it's going to take a lot of curiosity, a lot of
Mm.
changing your mindset about how things work. So there's a sense of having continuous learning, being adaptable, being flexible, seeing, okay, wow, like a few years ago, Bitcoin came in. What does it do? How does it work? Being curious enough to learn about these things. Maybe even applying mild risk to it, saying, okay, I'm going to invest 100 Rand and see what happens. Playing with those types of things, allowing your children to engage in a world where they can be curious, ask the why questions. Why does it work like this? How do we figure this out? And giving them the space to fail as well, not to necessarily intervene and help them out when they have failed or things have gone wrong, but to be a safety net and say, okay, so you've lost that 100 Rand at investing in Bitcoin. What could you have done differently? What did you see happening when you invested it? Is there something you could have done differently? Asking these questions, shaping your child's mindset to say, okay, this is not the end.
Mm.
It's fine, you failed. Let's just reconvene, look at it a bit differently. So there's also a form of what we call growth mindset at play,
Yes.
saying
Yes.
that,
Yes.
this is not the end. Let's
Mm.
just refocus, relook at this, and then take initiative and um, reestablish a way to better ourselves and upskill yourself in a different way. Maybe I think if we look at core skills that are really going to be important going forward, if we look at the World Economic Forum's jobs report,
Mm.
things like adaptability
Yes.
is going to be very important. So being able to say, okay, this is not working out, or I'm struggling with this problem, but I'm going to apply a different mindset to try and
Mm.
figure it out. Or the world is already changing. I used to do this, but now I can do this. How do I adapt from this? Again, a very important skill to have. Another crucial skill is something like social intelligence, being able to connect with others, to have
Mm.
empathy, to take leadership,
Mm.
building relationships. We're already seeing the great disconnect. So
Mm.
it does emphasize the need to say, okay, how do I take care of those around me? How do I build relationships? And this is going to be important in teamwork, in working together and making sure there's a success in the workplace, and goals are being reached. Another thing, especially in South Africa, a skill that is going to be very important is entrepreneurial skills.
Mm.
To say, okay, I need to be good at budgeting, marketing, project planning, being able to sell something to
Mm.
to others, because as we know, there aren't a lot of jobs out there. And right now, the initiative is to start thinking in a way so that you can create jobs. Start applying your mindset and say, okay, there's an opportunity here. How can I see gaps? How can I anticipate what's happening? And taking this new industrial revolution in stride and say, okay, what opportunities does it bring me? We have
Mm.
AI. What can AI teach me? Or what can how can I partner with AI to make a difference in this economy in South Africa? So a lot of different skill sets are going to be important. And I think for parents just to come back and say, okay, how do I get my child from, this is it, it should have been going to school, getting my matric, going to university, the normal linear route, and then entering a job. I mean, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, we would have jumped from one job to another, maybe in the same field. But the idea of now saying, okay, that's not going to be the case going forward.
Mm.
If I want to prepare my child, I need to make sure that they are equipped going forward, that these skills that are going to be important for employers are now being transferred, and they are now starting to realize, okay, I need to learn how to become adaptable. I need to maybe, you know, build and buy something, start an e-commerce business on the side, just to get a bit of entrepreneurial skills in the mix. I think that's going to be very important going forward.
I think it's a really interesting time as well because, like you said, our parents are key factors in the decisions that we make growing up and when we make such important decisions. But I think also it speaks to the social capital that we gain from them. And if they don't have a growth mindset and they still stuck and not willing to be curious and to engage themselves in the way that things are changing, that there's actually a big disservice that we'd be doing for our kids. Because if I'm stubborn and I don't have a growth mindset and I'm like, this is a linear path that you need to take, I'm actually setting my child up for a bit of failure and probably a bit of anxiety because they'll be unable to pivot as effectively as they need to, and they might not be able to bounce back from failure because they're very rigid in the ideas about their future. So I think this is a really important webinar for parents more so than for children, because we shape our kids in so many ways that we honestly are sometimes unaware of as well.
No, absolutely.
Hazel.
And I think what's very so Hazel usually gives the more moderated answer, and I tend to say, okay, well, let's take a look at the implications of what we just said. Faiza, this implies that parents would need to be open to the idea that their child could potentially be a professional influencer and content generator. It's a viable job. And
Yeah.
if they do it well, they make more money than you.
Mm.
It-
Yeah.
and people reel from this. I'm like, no, they've
Yeah.
got so much potential. And I'm like,
Mm.
I'm sorry. Did you miss that young influencers can have audiences as big as in the millions?
Yeah.
And
Interestingly, oh, sorry.
now go for it.
My child, just before this phone call, my 8-year-old came to me and he said, I told him I'm going to be on YouTube later. And he said, Mom, I'd like to be on YouTube. And I was like, well, what are you going to do on YouTube? And he said, I'm going to unbuild my Lego Stitch. And then I'm going to slowly rebuild it and show everybody how they can build this Lego. And I'll record myself doing it. And I was like, okay, that's a bit interesting.
But and it's a viable option. And it sounds ludicrous
Mm.
to some people, but there are YouTube channels of young people recording their screens playing video games, and
Yes,
they have hundreds of thousands of people
I've
viewing
seen
it.
those. Yeah, I've seen those.
And it doesn't make sense to you, and you feel like you're wasting your potential. You know what? This could actually be a very viable career option. If not for the entire career, then at least say, let's support this. But, and this is a critical thing that parents must learn. And if you don't have these skills, it can be taught. It's a way of thinking of supporting the person, your child. Say, okay, you know what? I'm going to support this whole thing of playing games online, you earning money on it. But can I then just ask that you, as a sideline, start researching investments so that you take the money you earn there and put it into something productive? Why? Why, Mom? Because there might be a high volatility in the market that you are engaging in. It is. I mean, the next game comes out and you're not as good, and whoop, people are off your channel. It's so you can lose this stream of income very quickly. Continue with it. Do what you love. But let's, while you are generating an income, invest it. You can maybe take a look at blockchain technology. You can maybe um, uh, online trading that, and you, instead of no, the
Yeah.
only way is accounting, is
Yeah.
stimulate this sense of curiosity,
Mm.
because I think that's our toughest part. Is this new world scares us, and so we don't know. Hedge your bets. play it safe.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, those that are going to thrive are the ones that say,
Yeah.
you know what, my kid has made 50,000 Rand with online gaming.
Mm.
Let's take, let's go see a broker
Mhm.
and start with an investment strategy
Yeah.
for them with their own money.
And I think the diversified income stream also just protects you and then also teaches you to pivot. So even if it's not something like, because we spoke earlier on about your career changing along the way, but what about doing different things at the same time? And also how that prepares you to pivot and to juggle things. I mean, we're already seeing it at the moment with people that are not young, like myself, where you've got a full time career, but you have a side hustle that leverages the skills that you do in your 9 to 5. Because your 9 to 5 might not go somewhere. You could get retrenched. The world of work is changing all the time. So that your side hustle may not pay all of your bills, but it may just sustain you a little bit. It's an additional income. So I think just thinking in the different ways, whether it's diversified streams or at the same time, or if it's a more linear path, I think it's really interesting.
I
Absolutely.
think definitely. I think the research currently is showing that going forward, kids today, when they enter the job market, they probably will not have just one job.
Mm.
That I know we're already seeing it in our age, but for them, it may be as quite close to as a certainty that you will have more than two jobs. There would be a few that would focus specifically on that one thing, but the majority of the workforce would have probably more than one side hustle or job that they are doing.
Yeah, and there's a wonderful book that I can suggest um, to parents to cultivate this type of thinking of having multiple streams of income, or just getting out of this rut and groove that you do something and you do it well, and if you, and this is a big myth, if you work hard and stick to it, eventually it will pay off. I really need to warn people against this strategy. It can land you in solid retrenchment waters. I'm
Yeah,
sorry
that,
to say it.
yeah.
The era of hard work will get you rewarded. It's done. It's done.
That's my parents' generation. It just shows how things change. And also, what is hard work? Because hard work became smart work. I mean, it's more output based. But our parents taught us you needed to work until 9 p.m. to show that you're working hard. But no one's judging you by the hours you're putting in. They're judging you by the outcomes of your hours. So already there's been change.
Exactly. The book that I want to genuinely suggest people read is, the book's name is Option B.
Oh,
Facing Adversity, Building Resilience, and Finding Joy by Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant.
oh, I
So,
know both of them.
yes, yes. So it's genuinely about going, well, what's your option B? It's like, well, no, I'm at the top of my game. I'm, this MBA graduate, and I'm heading this company, and da 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 da. And I'm like, and if a competitor out of the economy of China finds a way to provide goods and services to your market quicker and cheaper, what's option B? And I think that's the point. Is it's not just a way of thinking for our children, it is very relevant to our what we're currently seeing in the job market in any case. Is it scary? It can be, but just ignoring the lion in the garden does not make it safe for anybody.
This is true, and I think sometimes the very things that we put up to create safety are the very things that can actually be to our detriment. The electric fence that you insist on putting can be the thing that shocks you.
Right? Definitely.
Sorry, I was trying to look for a book now. One of those authors to show. I'm a big reader, but thank you for the book recommendation. I just want to remind the audience that from 8 o'clock onwards, I will be inviting some questions, and I'll pin it to the speakers. But back to you, Hazel and Dr. Niemand, if there's anything else that you want to just extrapolate on in terms of preparing our children, maybe how parents can encourage critical thinking and adaptability and creativity at home. Like how do they do that? Do they do that through their own actions? How are they doing that?
That's a very good question because it starts. It depends on how you look at it. When you are looking at critical thinking, right? It's the ability to analyze information, to evaluate your options, to solve complex problems, right? How do you do that? And again, school is such a great place for a child. I think that this is why governments have made it mandatory over the years. Of course, it wasn't mandatory previously, and now it's such a good thing. We always love when I've tutored math for quite a long time, and I always sit with the kids, and they're like, "Why do I have to learn math? Why do I have to study it?" And I even remember when I was a matric and we need the trig, right? Everyone's like, but you're gonna build roofs if you use trig. I don't want to build roofs. And it's such a platonic little question of why maths, for example. And I think because the question now, if you want to start introducing critical thinking to your child, sending them to school is a great option because subjects like math and science teach your child to go a bit deeper in terms of solving problems.
Mm.
It's okay, there's a problem. It looks strange. It looks funny. I'm becoming slightly overwhelmed. But if I apply different steps, if I look at it differently, I might get a solution. Things like science, where you can perform experiments, right? That's also such a great way to see what is happening, and how can you ensure that you get to a solution. Maybe make it a bit simpler because yes, school's great, but not everything should be the school's problem, right? It is the parents' involvement, families' involvement that's really going to make an impact in terms of critical thinking. So at home, just go to the kitchen, find random ingredients, and say, okay, let's see what happens if
Ah,
we mix yogurt and eggs together and put it in the microwave. And
mm,
let's see what happens if we do this and put it in the oven. And then ask yourself the question, so did the different heat types, impact the chemistry, and why did it impact the chemistry? Explore things, be creative in that, and that's where creativity comes in. So just to think a bit outside of the box. You
yeah.
don't necessarily need to get a tutor to come and teach your child how to think critically. You can play games at home. Even playing one of the critical things to do, from early childhood is to play a game like peekaboo with your toddler, because that like what is happening? They're starting to question.
Yeah.
Now I see the face. Now I don't. Things like as simple as that.
Mm.
Even going outside in the garden, exploring the different plants. Why is
Mm,
this? Why is there a brown streak on this leaf? What is happening to the plant? Again, exploring things, building curiosity, building critical thinking through being curious. That's going to be such an important way to look at critical thinking and developing it
Mm.
very practically and very um, in a way that makes sense and is simple and it's not expensive. I
mm,
think if you go to teenagers and you sit down with them, they already have a lot of things they have to critically solve, especially in school. But then, having as a family read a book, maybe one that's challenging enough for your teenager, and say, okay, what did you think of when the author said this? So
Mm.
having a bit of a debate is also going to help your child think critically and say, okay, um, so you now mentioned this about the author. Why do you think that you interpret it in this way? So encouraging metacognition, in other words,
Mm,
encouraging reflexive or reflexive thinking. So that is asking myself the question, why did I think about it this way? Why did I feel this way? And then exploring that. Again, it builds that basic building blocks to think critically and then to be able to solve problems. Again, and it encourages creative thinking. So
mm.
um, pairing that together is such a good way to enhance critical thinking in your child.
That's such a good answer as well. And I think it's going to be so important in the age of AI, which not only helps us to do better, but it also helps us to be quite lazy. Why think when I can get AI to think for me? But AI is only as good as what you input, right? And you need to like elevate it, and the creativity and the critical thinking needs to be paired with that technology, right? And everything you've mentioned, I've just thought technology can't step in there, like feeling the grass, observing the brown stain on the plant. Yes, you can go to AI and ask, why is the plant doing this? Why is it not growing? Or how can I elevate my recipe? But the actual figuring it out is what's going to create the critical thinking. Like, do I need what texture do I need to add to this baked good now?
Mm.
Is it missing the fat from an egg? Is it missing protein? I mean, sorry, I'm not the greatest baker, but I'm
No,
sure
but
that, yeah, and
it's
even
getting me.
probably the TV shows that we choose as well could be quite beneficial. I mean, I've gotten my kids to watch where they pay an engineer with a baker so they can stress test baked goods.
Yes.
So build a boat
Yes.
Wow.
and let it float down the river, and the boat mustn't collapse, but it must be made from food ingredients only. So I figured that'd be really good for them to watch, to kind of see how people stress test and figure things out and pivot along the way so they can do unique things.
Exactly.
Mm.
Like, Faiza, the point is here,
Mhm.
if a child, if your child says, Mommy, where does the hot water in our house come from?
Don't say, I
In
don't know, go away.
the don't answer them. Don't
Um,
answer them. Say, well, where do you think it comes
yeah.
from? No, out of the pipe. Okay, where
Mm,
does that come from?
uh,
And then you're gonna run into, well, you know what? Let's go figure out
mm,
together. Let's go watch a few YouTube videos. Let's go and stand outside and take a look at the pipes. Don't provide answers.
that's good.
Stimulate curiosity.
Open-ended question right back at them so they can think
Right?
about the answer. That's so amazing. I would have just answered. I thought the wrong answer was to not answer and to not ignite curiosity. I didn't think there was an issue with giving the answer, but I
This is
see
our
what you mean.
problem because AI is going
Gives
to
the answer.
give answers,
Mm,
and we need to be very aware of the fact that they can calculate, write,
mm,
and very shortly reason much quicker than people can.
mm.
But you still will need someone to implement or use this information, this output, and go, it's not exactly what I'm looking for. And I had to do this where I um, used AI, a very sophisticated large language model, to help me study for an exam. Um, part of my the recent studies that I also did, and I I sat there and I said, okay, so what would my lecturer want me to know given this large volume of information? Like, okay, take a look at it, take a look at the index. Then, okay, um, ChatGPT, summarize the first chapter for me, but make sure that you have these highlights, and I suspect this is important for the lecturer. Zit. Like, okay, and check again. Okay, so AI was integral to the studies, but it was so highly engaged that I studied for this exam. The amount of time I used to study was in any way like I would have for a normal, just
Yeah.
go through the information exam. But what happened was, because I was constantly critically evaluating the output of the AI against the textbook, against these articles, against this expert, I started building my own theories, and it was the memory game of memorizing things was nowhere to be seen, because I was using critical faculties, which lays it in long-term memory in any case. So this is the point. Your kid should use AI to study, please. But what they also should do is develop an attitude of, this thing can help me super study. If I just understand what it is, what it can do for me, and what my role is, that is where parents can play amazing parts by going, okay, thank you. I can see you studied for your history exam using AI. Would it be okay for you to write a quick 15 minutes, just write up a 5 minute speech for me that you come and deliver on the topic for me, just to get a sense of how well acquainted are you.
Yes.
Oh no, mommy, I can't do it. Well, then
Yes.
go try again.
Yes, yes. I think a lot of adults are already guilty of that. They're using AI on LinkedIn to sound like an expert in something that they don't actually know anything about. And I ask myself, would you be able to talk about that topic in person? Because if you're
That's
not
the
able to, you shouldn't be using a platform to be a thought leader on something that only AI contributed to. Like I cannot be talking about engineering on LinkedIn when I don't know anything about it and I'm not curious about it generally. Because and I think people can very quickly nowadays see into that, or maybe they'll fall for that online, but the moment they meet you, they're going to be like, there's a missing middle here because she does not match what she seems to be preaching online. So that authenticity needs to flow, right?
mm,
Between what you're putting out there and the technology that you lean on, but actually absorbing things, because you're going to get caught out. Sorry, just a step back, if you don't mind. We do have someone in the chat asking if you could please repeat the name of the book by Adam Grant and Sheryl Sandberg.
more than willing. It's option B,
Option
and
B.
the facing adversity, building resilience, and finding joy.
Thank you. So we'll just wrap up in a moment, and then I've got a few questions from the audience. But if you could just continue. Sorry for the interruption.
No, go for it, Hazel. Over to you.
I think one of my favorite movies is, I don't know if you've heard about Hidden Figures. It's about these
Yes,
three women who
based on a
works
book.
at NASA.
Mm.
So and it's such a great movie to, I think, maybe even watch with with your children, right?
Mm.
Because the idea, if you look at, I think it was Dorothy who worked in the computer, they were calculators, and she NASA was building a computer room, which obviously we now have laptops, but they have had a room as big as a hallway that was just a computer. And so what Dorothy did was she noticed that, okay, their skills at being called calculators, in other words, they were very fast at solving problems mentally wise, that was going to phase out. So she went and she got books. She was proactive. She didn't just fall behind and say, okay, you know what? Um, these girls are going to lose their job. I'm not going to have a job in a month, that she picked herself up. She had a bit of resilience and she said, okay, let's go and find out, or let me go and study this thing. What is happening? And so she taught herself coding at that stage, and she was fiddling in the computer room, and where when some of the other NASA employees came in and said, how did you do that? Because they couldn't even figure it out. And at the end of the day, she got a job for her and the girls because she could figure out something that the others couldn't. She saw a gap and she took it. She didn't just fall. down and say, you know what, this isn't, going to be conducive anymore for, I'm not going to have a job. I need to make a plan. I need to be agile. And that's
Mm.
where the continuous learning comes in, and that adaptability, and saying, okay, um, what can I do to improve myself? Where can I upskill? The world is changing. They went from being calculators to actually having a computer that can do the calculations. Now we're going from computers who can do everything for us to AI, who can take even the task of writing in and do it for us. So how do we upskill ourselves? Go and do your own research, find out where there's gaps, and upskill in that way. It's continuously learning and researching and finding what can bring you together in and make an impact where you are currently in your career as well as your child's.
I love that. I love that because especially when you talked about fiddling, and it's beyond our age. I mean, like my grandmother, every 2 years she gets a cell phone and she's angry for the first day or two because she can't figure it out. But she sits with that phone and fiddles until she can figure it out, and then she's a pro at the phone, and the mood is better. At this point, she's 85 and she's on Instagram. Like
Wow.
you just need to fiddle for long enough, and then it'll make sense, right? Some patience and some
Exactly.
resilience, and then you're there.
Exactly. And again, that this is where I think if you want to encourage your child, it would be such a great idea to do extracurricular activities. Um, playing sports is such a good activity to do because first of all, you learn how to fail, you learn how to work in a team, you learn those different skills to adapt, right? So those are the basic ones you can learn: the social intelligence, playing a sport, preferably team sport, or even well, not necessarily, but the team sport will help with the social intelligence. Even things like opening a Duolingo account, studying a language, going something as simple as that. Every day I'm going to do the set questions they ask me, and I'm going to learn that. It's learning something new every day, which stimulates that critical thinking, that adaptability, that resilience, that those skills that are going to be needed in the future.
I love that you keep mentioning the diversification of online skills and everything that's also traditional and offline, like books and TV and going out in nature and sports and social skills. Because I think we also probably face a problem where we lean so heavily on technology that we lose our social skills. Everything is online. We don't talk to people. Our critical thinking is capped at us just integrating with technology and actually not bouncing ideas from anybody else, not actually engaging with content and thinking critically. So I think I like that you mentioned the holistic idea of challenging ourselves and improving beyond technology, but also with technology.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me get to some questions. Someone has asked on YouTube, what does the career forecast look like for accountants?
So, Faiza, this is a look. You can write dissertations on just questions like that, but what we are seeing is you've got essentially two camps of thought. The first camp of people say, guys, learn agentic AI, get on this boat as quickly as possible because you will be astounded at the value you can add additionally to customers if you have your own practice, to companies. And then there's the other camp that says, we can't trust this. They're going to steal the data. It's not safe. And both camps have immense value they bring to the debate. You need to listen to both of the points because both have good points. However, I recently was a speaker at the SIBA conference, talking about something other than tonight. But what was very clear from the speakers before me in the sessions was that people people that are willing to go the tech route and upskill themselves in their understanding, in their mindset, in their use of these large language models, large data use techniques, that type of stuff, can will eventually outperform those that don't. Six love. So the profession of accounting in itself is probably not in danger. What is in danger is if people are not willing to ride the wave, it will crash on top of them.
So I would also assume that early adoption is more important than ever because A, you get better in the long term, but B, you get to leverage something other people are not yet on. So you
That's
get
it.
the edge and you get the benefit from that edge. So I remember using AI the day that it came out. And then I was faster than everybody else, but everybody was still scared and they weren't using it yet. So I looked like I was more productive, but I was just actually leveraging a platform. And so then when everyone else was jumping on it, I knew how to work it well already because I started earlier. So you're saying it's not about the actual career, but it's about integrating and being willing to utilize AI and technology with that.
And this is the critical thing of, are there professions that will eventually be phased out? Yes. Yes. Yes, they will. Um, as AI matures, and remember, it's a very new technology. We and there are people that will say, yeah, but we need to ethically regulate it, and the debate is still on. I get it. I fully get it, and I fully agree. It should not just be let loose, but I would seriously urge people to take the industrial revolution you are currently going through very seriously, because if you if you blink, you might be outcompeted by a young 20-year-old who has set up agents, AI agents in their practice, and they can service clients within days that you take months to service. It is genuinely what could happen. Yes, we still need human oversight, we still need human intervention, and this is where the critical thinking and the digital literacy is so important. You can't remove yourself. Please, AI is not an invitation to be lazy. It is an invitation to be super productive and value adding in a very scalable and economically friendly way.
Don't we also need to reframe our thinking around our identity and our unique selling points and our personal brand and what we have to offer? And think about how we can holistically paint a picture rather than, hi, I'm Faiza, I'm a marketer.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, hi, I'm Pfizer, I provide exceptional marketing solutions. Do you hear the difference there? The identity statement
Yeah.
is not, I am what I do, it is, I provide solutions.
Solutions. Yeah, and those solutions can change, and the scope and depth of marketing is broad.
Exactly.
Okay, let's see some other questions. What does the career focus look like for the hospitality sector?
Ooh. Hazel, you're going to take it.
That is a very interesting question. I think right now humans aren't being replaced that quickly because we want that interaction, we want that connectivity, and again, we're getting to some people who really want that interaction with a person. If we go to a hotel and you go to a reception area, the idea is okay, especially in South Africa. I want to see someone at reception, greets me with a warm smile, say everything will be okay, my bed is made up, and that's the way to go. But we do see a trend that humans can be replaced, even if they are warm and fuzzy. So the idea is again to look at, if you want to go into tourism, you want to go into hospitality, look at what is changing currently. Yes, if you take hotel groups, they don't have a reception anymore. They have a computer where you book yourself in. It gives you your key. It shows you to your room. If there's any problem in your room, they will you have the ability to contact a service provider in the room to help sort you out wherever the need is possible. Or if you go to it, I want to say, if you go on holiday, right? A tour, someone that will provide you with ideas to places to visit, maybe book you into certain hotels, a travel agent. Again, it can be replaced. You don't need a human to do that anymore. In fact, you can ask ChatGPT to give you a quick guideline on how, this is what I want to see in this country. Help me plan the best route. Help me see everything that needs to be seen, and make sure that it's affordable enough, and give them your budget. And ChatGPT can do that for you. The idea is, if you want to enter tourism, if you want to enter hospitality, you're going to find out, okay, so where is the gap in that? Where can I leverage my skills and say, okay, so AI can do this, but how do I partner with AI to provide better solutions? Like Jan said, don't if you adopt it, then it may give you the advantage. Otherwise, find skills you can utilize and say, okay, maybe in the long run, this isn't going to be feasible. Where else can I use my skills and transfer it to a different industry or to a different field?
Right.
Or noticing a gap based on what people are researching about a place, right? So if you're in Egypt, then women tend to ask questions about, how do I travel safely around Egypt? Think, as a tour guide, how can I have women's only tour groups at night so they can feel safe? Because tons of women
Exactly.
want to go out, but they don't want to go out alone. They want to guide a tour. They're going to go to AI for the tour, but then they still need someone to take them on the tour.
That's the point. Is, Pfizer, you need to embrace the fact that technology is impacting, for instance, the hospitality sector, but it's about allowing playful exploration and curiosity to find the gap. Because what we're seeing is AI and robotics and automation demand that people interacting in this environment want seamless interaction. They don't want to hassle with tickets and bookings, and that it must just happen and it must be brilliant. But when they arrive in Cairo, they want someone like with a board, a little board, and saying, "Mrs. Smith, welcome to Egypt," and you have this champagne ready, and your camel awaits, and then you load them into this taxi called the Camel, and you hear it is the when the operations and the logistics and the bookings is taken over, what remains is something that only humans can be,
Yes.
and that is human. And then people
The
will be willing
experience.
to pay for that. Why? Because you're giving them something that no one else can.
Thank you. Okay, so another question. Is coding or technical knowledge essential for every child, or are human-centered skills more important?
I think both of them, right?
Sorry?
So both of them would be quite important going forward. If you think about coding, you don't necessarily have to end up becoming a software engineer, but having the basic idea of what is code, what does it do, you know, if I can utilize it and manipulate it in a certain way, what are my options? So I think it was also ChatGPT CEO Sam Altman. you said you don't necessarily need to go and study, coding to be, to become what he has become. But you should have a basic understanding, and that applies across the board, especially for kids today, is to have that understanding. Okay, so this is what code does. This is how
Mm,
I'm going to
Mm,
use it,
mm,
and this is why AI is doing what it's doing. It's coding itself. It's I think Jan would be a very good expert on this, but it can lead to AGI if
mm,
the AI can learn to code itself. So that those are interesting ways to explore and to see, okay, that's important. I can understand this and I can utilize it going forward. And then whatever career you end up in, you can actually utilize it. And you
mm,
can utilize that skills again that you've learned by coding, right?
mm,
It's problem solving, it's critical thinking, it's finding solutions, it's being creative that you can then transfer into your career. And again, human having a human-centered approach is again, it's going to be very important because that's
mm,
going to be the element that AI, robots, tech, it's not going to give it to us. We are going to have to be our own solution in terms of understanding each other, finding a platform where we can debate and have empathy,
mm.
being connected and building relationships. So both is going to be very important.
mm.
So it's like mathematics. You don't need to be a mathematician or go into it to carry it through to university, but the building blocks are essential. You
So
mentioned debate, Hazel.
life is better with mathematics.
Even though we may not understand it at the beginning, but in hindsight, we don't see the ways that it has necessarily upskilled us. And Hazel, you mentioned debating. I would imagine that debate would be quite an essential skill
Yes.
these days because off the cuff, you now need to think and provide an argument without the use of technology, without the time to research, and you just need to respond. And wouldn't debate also be quite useful?
Definitely. I think and debate again, it's testing your knowledge and it's allowing those skills to come to the fore and also to develop it. So especially
Mhm.
if your kids can, go and participate in debates or um, the speeches that they give in class, those are so important for developing critical thinking skills and
Mm,
again having that transferred into a career one day. But I think one a different way also, if you want to look at with the human approach, is to look at debating as a way to connect with each other, even though you differ, even though you
Yeah.
argue about the topic,
Mm,
because that's again, as we can see in the world today,
mm,
it's going to be such an important skill to have
mm.
that empathy, that connection.
Yeah, create understanding and empathy just by arguing a point you may not agree with, but so that you can see merit to the other side. Which surprisingly a lot of people can't do. They just fixated on the viewpoint again, growth mindset, right? Which also probably
Mm,
lends itself to depression and anxiety in a way, because when you lack that growth mindset, you struggle to be agile, you struggle to pivot, you struggle to fail or to fail forward and to bounce back. Can you talk to me? There is a question here about resilience. What does resilience look like in the next
mm.
generation of workers? How can parents foster it? And I think in the age of mental well-being being so critical, I think resilience is
Yes.
exceptionally important.
So here's the interesting part about resilience is you get and this is our thinking on it also can be enriched incredibly. A wonderful author to take a look at is Nassim Taleb. Um, so he takes this whole thing of fragile systems. A fragile system is a system. Now, a person can be a system. Your personality construct can be a system. Your how you view the world can be a system. So any kind of system that our infrastructure can be a complex system. If a system is fragile,
Mm,
it means it can't take hits.
yeah.
Um, so a glass, uh, um, a wine glass
Mm,
is fragile, right? Then you get something that is resilient. A plastic cup is resilient.
yeah.
It can take beating. before it eventually will give way. But there's another concept that Nassim Taleb introduces, which I think will be even more important than resilience, and that is anti-fragility.
Anti-fragility.
So anti-fragility is the characteristic of certain complex systems that when they take a beating, they actually become stronger and adapt more. Our human bodies are actually anti-fragile. If you don't pummel them too quickly with too much, we become stronger. We call that fitness.
Yes.
Intelligence is an anti-fragile system. Hazel can speak to this much better than I can, but there's increasing research that shows that IQ is not fixed. The more you work with it, the better it becomes. And this is the point. The fourth industrial revolution entails so many uncertainties and questions that failure and uncertainty are inevitable. And it is approaching them from, well, now I know what doesn't work. Let us adapt from there. It's and it sounds very strange, but we've got to learn how to fail successfully so the
Yes.
failure is incorporated into your next
Yes.
move.
It's
And
like
this
the
is why
Japanese pottery.
exactly. And this is the point. If you want to teach your kid about resilience and anti-fragility, enroll them in pottery classes for a year. I'm
I,
very serious.
I love pottery. I've done it.
And then you tell the story of their pottery. If you want to teach them um, about absorbing mistakes, let them play a musical instrument.
And don't we also absorb mistakes by doing more and being more curious because we're likely to fail the more things we try, right? So if I only try piano and a third language from the age of 3, and we do the 10,000 hours thing, which was an earlier book, I'm likely to be very good at those two things, right? Which is going to make me feel good about myself because I'm going to get the reassurance from my peers, from my parents, from everybody. Wow, you're so good at the piano, which is going to be good for me. But then, in a world where the piano is phased out, okay, bad example, but say the piano could be phased out, I'll be like, well, what am I without my piano? Whereas if I was doing 20 different things, failing at 15 and being really good at 5, but learning skills from the other 15, I see myself more holistically, and my identity is not within one thing. So I fail forward a little bit more easily, right? Because I'm used to failure from an early age. So should we also encourage failure to encourage resilience from a young age?
Absolutely. And this is the point. It's adopting a psychology of, oh my goodness, now things have broken, we failed, and go, Faiza, this is tough. It's very tough for parents, but to go, okay, so you failed grade 10 mathematics. What are we going to learn out of this? Adapt, and allowing the child to genuinely experience what it means to change strategy because it counts in the real world.
I think as parents also we should show our children how we fail, and I think we don't realize that we often look like we're doing things well because that's the facade that we're presenting. My youngest child is now 5. When he was 4 years old, he had a little oopsie at school, and he was like, "But mommy, you never do anything wrong. You get everything right." And then I had to think of an example and tell him, "No, actually, I also struggle. This is a big mistake that I have. This is an oopsie I have," and he was very surprised that I could make a mistake, and I realized, well, I'm obviously not what's the word showing that side of things because they just see everything that works for me as an adult. Okay, so I've just the last one. I've got a poll. We've done a poll in the chat, and in terms of the confidence about the future of work, it's it's like a little 50-50 there. So 58% of parents are saying that they feel confident about the future of work, which I think is good. And 42% is saying no. But I guess you could extrapolate on how that confidence could improve based on a curiosity and a growth mindset, perhaps, or something else. His closing thoughts?
Hazel, go for it.
Well, I think again, the idea is, I think what makes us humans such an incredible species is that we are actually very adaptable. It may not look like it when we're going through minor things throughout the day or even years, but if we look at decades, we can see, wow, there has been some adaptations. We made huge mistakes as a species, as different cultures, as different people across different times. And every time humanity has managed to bounce back. And that may be an overly positive way to look at things, but I think it's important to look at it in that positive way to say, okay, so we can adapt, we can move forward. So now how do I do it as an individual? You know, what can I bring to the table? And that is again by allowing yourself to feel those emotions of overwhelm, to feel, you know, yes, this is really not going great. Because sometimes it just isn't. So allow yourself to feel that. Don't repress that because it's normal. I think most people feel that way. But then to say, okay, so I'm feeling these emotions. It's not looking great, or sometimes things aren't working out. How do I then act on it? How do I make it better? How do I make it different? Because there's always a solution. There's always a way going forward. And again, that's encouraging your child. It's encouraging yourself to say, okay, I'm going to look at this maybe from a different perspective. I'm not going to stare at the wall and say, okay, this is it, because it never is. And to realize that it never is, this isn't a dead stop, this isn't a dead end. And to find a way around it, even if it takes time, even if it takes hammering a bit and, you know, again, digressing and feeling all those emotions again, it's saying, okay, I'm going to get up and try again. I'm going to see, you know, how I can um, bring a solution to the table. So again, that's where those skills come in, and that's why employers and the World Economic Forum sees them as incredibly important going forward. So being adaptable, being flexible, having a growth mindset, and being able to continuously learn.
Love it. Thank you for the closing thoughts, Hazel. Anything from you, Dr. Niemand, as we've got like 4 minutes left?
So the point is, Faiza, I think if many people listening to this feel uncomfortable, their feelings are very correct. We are going through unprecedented times. We have things from history to help us gauge where this could go, but it's of a magnitude of change that we haven't seen before, because we've created stuff that are essentially more intelligent than us, and they're running around in cyberspace. You know, it's that's
Our
they're
kids too. They're also
yeah,
running around and they're smarter than us.
exactly. So the point is, it's embracing this uncertainty and saying, how can I get a firmer grasp, not not building a pie in the sky, but how can I become more adept at dealing with uncertainty? Because that we're gonna go through an uncertain time period for a while still, but like Hazel said, we are incredibly adaptable. And if we apply our intentions and minds to it, we can actually surprise ourselves. But doing the ostrich and poking your head in the
Yeah.
sand and hoping this is going to go away, it sorry, it's not going to stop. We've unleashed the beast, and we need to live in a world that our forebears and us essentially participated in creating. It's here now. We've got to work with it.
This is true. Thank you both so much. I really enjoyed the session, and I do hope everyone that's joined us online or anyone that joins the live feed after the recording is up found this session very insightful. And I think you've eased our anxieties, or at least you've eased my anxieties. I think there's a lot of promise and a lot of potential, and I also think that there's a really interesting journey for our kids and even for us if we live long enough, because I mean, growing up, you're always like, oh, I want to be a soccer player and a teacher and a psychologist. And now we get to be many things,
You
like we
get
don't
to
have
do it.
to work for
You can. You
free.
can.
Exciting. It would
Exactly.
be amazing to end my life and know that I did many different things and I did it well and I failed and I flourished and I learned and I've got so many stories to start. What a rich life, right?
Right.
So thank you. Thank you so much. This has been really insightful. I value your time and I really appreciate your insights.
Thank you for having
My
us.
pleasure.
Thank you for joining. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.